Chapter 1. I faked an affair so I could take my money and run. When I told my wife I was cheating, she just calmly said she'd help me raise the kid. Terrified, I packed a bag and fled into the night. The reason? 5 years ago, I started exclusively investing in down-on-their-luck female entrepreneurs, helping them stage massive comebacks. 5 years later, my wife, Sloan Montgomery, had just been crowned the wealthiest woman in New York. It was time for me to cash out and exit stage left. Now that her company had gone public, I brought up divorce. I faked the infidelity just to disgust her. Instead, she looked at me with chilling composure and said, "It's fine. If she has the baby, I'll raise it." Spooked out of my mind, I grabbed my funds and ran, leaving behind forged evidence of my cheating, desperate just to break free. But she absolutely refused to sign the papers, even offering to raise my supposed illegitimate child. I had no choice but to flee, only for her to track me down and chloroform me on the spot. When I woke up, her eyes were filled with a dark, obsessive frenzy. "Honey, you saved my life. Did you really think you could escape me? Now I know. The only way to make sure you never leave is to lock you up." Night had fallen. The ultra-luxury Manhattan penthouse was ablaze with light. Sloan was home. She wore a custom-tailored designer suit that perfectly accentuated her slender figure, her long hair pinned up to reveal the elegant curve of her neck. Her face carried the faint exhaustion of a long evening of corporate networking, but that innate, icy aloofness seemed carved right into her bones. She truly looked the part of New York's newest billionaire. Her aura of absolute authority was dialed into perfection. She tossed her clutch onto the sofa and rubbed the bridge of her nose. "You're not playing video games today?" I didn't answer. I just looked at her. I stared at this perfect masterpiece that I had personally invested in. 5 years. It was time to reel in the net. I reached into my pocket, pulled out the divorce agreement I had prepared well in advance, and gently placed it on the coffee table in front of her. "Sloan, I want a divorce." The air of the room instantly went dead. Sloan's hand, still massaging the bridge of her nose, froze in mid-air as if someone had hit the pause button. The exhaustion on her face vanished entirely, replaced by a pure, unadulterated shock. Did something happen? Is there something I'm not doing right? Her voice was rushed, laced with a trace of panic I had never heard from her before. She didn't sound like a cutthroat corporate queen. She sounded like a kid terrified of getting yelled at by a parent for breaking something. I shook my head, lit a cigarette, and made sure my posture screamed total detachment. "You've done everything right. The company went public, your net worth skyrocketed, and now you're the richest woman in the city. It's not a you problem." I tapped my ashes, watching her face turn increasingly pale. "I just don't want to be married anymore." Sloan's heart must have plummeted straight to the floor. She was panicking, completely losing her grip. She even dropped all her pride and composure, her voice trembling with pleading. "If I didn't do anything wrong, then why do you want a divorce?" "I won't do it." She reached out to grab my arm, but I subtly shifted out of her reach. Boring. All this push and pull, so overly emotional. Well, I guess she was an emotional person after all. Seeing that logic wasn't going to work, I decided to drop the nuclear option. I let out a sharp scoff, pasting a perfectly calibrated look of self-mockery and sleaziness onto my face. "It's a me problem. I cheated." After dropping the bomb, I sat back and quietly watched her, waiting for the inevitable explosion of rage, or maybe a slap across the face. After all, a woman as fiercely proud as her could never tolerate that kind of humiliation. And yet, Sloan just froze. For 3 whole seconds. Then, she opened her mouth, and the sentence she spoke made the hairs on my arms stand straight up. "It's fine." I seriously thought my ears were malfunctioning. She continued, her tone terrifyingly level. "As long as you don't bring her to the house." My cigarette ash fell right onto my pants. She didn't seem to notice my shock. She even added a follow-up. "I don't even care if she has a kid. I'll raise it." Boom. It felt like a grenade had gone off inside my skull. What kind of unhinged psychobabble was this? This wasn't in the script. A billionaire CEO finds out her husband is cheating, and her reaction is, "No problem. I'll pay for the child support." This wasn't love. This was a sickness, a deep, twisted pathology that sent a chill from the soles of my feet straight to my scalp. Her reaction terrified me, but it also made my resolve to divorce her stronger than ever. If I stayed with a woman like this, she'd chew me up and swallow me whole. I hardened my posture, my voice turning to ice. "I don't care what you think. This marriage is over." That sentence finally seemed to set her off. Sloan shot up from the sofa, the pathetic, pleading demeanor instantly evaporating. The queen's aura came roaring back. Tears welled in her beautiful eyes, but they were filled with absolute iron resolve. "Carter Hayes, I am never signing those papers. You'll have to kill me before I divorce you." With that, She spun on her heel and bolted upstairs, leaving me staring at her trembling back. Slam! The bedroom door upstairs violently shut. The penthouse returned to dead silence. I leaned back against the sofa, completely baffled. What the hell was this woman's endgame? My mind was a mess. My thoughts began to drift uncontrollably back to a long time ago. Honestly, my life as a kid was vastly better than it was now. My parents were a pair of ruthless, self-made moguls who built an absolute empire for me. Up until I was 6, I lived in a gilded bubble. Then came the car crash. My parents were killed on impact. I was the only survivor. At the funeral, I kneeled on the floor, my mind completely blank. All I could hear was the fake, theatrical weeping of my so-called relatives. Oh, they left us too soon. Whatever will happen to the company? Carter is so young. All those millions in the estate. He needs someone reliable to manage it. I overheard my Uncle Frank lowering his voice to whisper to my Aunt Martha. We need to get our hands on the shares first. The kid doesn't know squat. I've had my eye on that Hampton's estate for a while. Let's transfer the deed to my name before someone else scams him out of it. I didn't know what shares or deeds were back then. All I knew was that a pack of hungry wolves was circling my parents' bones, drooling. Just as they were about to carve up the estate, Aunt Evelyn arrived. She was my mother's absolute best friend. She walked in wearing a sleek black trench coat and sharp heels, looking like an absolute queen. Anyone who tries to touch the Hayes estate can deal with my legal team first. She slammed a folder onto the table, her eyes as cold as absolute zero. That pack of strutting, greedy relatives instantly shrank into terrified little quails. Using ruthless legal maneuvers, Aunt Evelyn pried $5 million in liquid cash right out of the jaws of those vultures and secured it for me. She took me in. Unlike the others, she never wanted anything from me. She just raised me like I was her own flesh and blood. After I graduated from college, I stared at the string of zeros in my bank account and started plotting out my life. $5 million. I kept $1 million in a high-yield account to live off the interest, enough to keep me from starving. The remaining $4 million I was going to use for a massive gamble. People always say the worst kind of trust fund kid isn't the one who blows his money partying. It's the one who tries to prove he's a genius entrepreneur. They didn't know shit. My game was different. I wasn't going to start a company or build a brand. I chose to be an angel investor. Specifically, I sought out women who had the talent and the ambition, but who had been crushed by circumstances and hit rock bottom. Because I had figured something out early on. A woman in that position is the greatest investment vehicle on earth, but also the most dangerous. If she loves you, she's the sharpest sword in your arsenal. She'll walk through fire for you. If she doesn't, she's a ticking time bomb that will blow your life to pieces. So, my investments required 100% absolute control. I carefully handpicked a few targets. Each one was an undervalued blue-chip stock with infinite potential. But the one I bet on the heaviest, that was Sloan. I still remember the first time I saw her file. In the photo, her eyes were dim, her face haggard, but buried deep in those eyes was a fierce, relentless defiance, like a wild animal trapped in a cage. I smiled right then and there. A hunter had found his perfect prey. 5 years ago, a cramped, moldy walk-up apartment in Queens. The stench of cheap ramen mixed with mildew almost knocked me out. Sloane's father, a man who had once been a respectable businessman, was now hunched over, his hair graying, his eyes completely hollow. Her mother stood in the corner, silently crying, twisting the hem of her shirt like a guilty child. Splayed across the wall in bright red spray paint were the words, "Pay your debts." The front door was covered in deep gashes from a baseball bat, and there was Sloane standing by the window. She was so thin she looked like a piece of paper that could blow away in the breeze. But I saw the fire in her eyes. A dying, furious fire. She was just about to throw herself out of that 6-story window. Right at that second, the front door was kicked open. A group of massive thugs with neck tattoos and brass knuckles blocked the exit. The leader, a bald guy with a thick neck, chewed on a cigar. "Old man, where's the cash? If you don't pay up today, we're dragging your daughter down to the VIP club to work it off." Sloane's dad dropped to his knees with a heavy thud. "Just give us a few more days. I'm begging you, just a few more days." The bald guy kicked him hard in the shoulder. "Daze my ass." That was the exact moment I walked into the room. I tapped the bald guy on the shoulder. "Hey, buddy, who do you think you're talking to?" The guy turned around, annoyed, about to start cursing me out. But when his eyes caught the glint of the Patek Philippe on my wrist, he froze. I ignored him and walked straight up to Sloane's parents. "Sir, ma'am, how much are we talking about?" Sloane's father held up a trembling finger. "$1 million. I nodded. I pulled out my phone and, right in front of everyone, made a call. "Aunt Evelyn, wire me $1 million. It's an emergency." On the other end of the line, Aunt Evelyn didn't even ask what it was for. "Done." It'll clear in a minute. Chapter 2. Less than 30 seconds later, my phone chimed. I held the screen up to the bald guy's face. Give me your routing number. I'm transferring it now. The thug and his goons looked like their eyes were going to pop out of their skulls. Once the money hit their account, they didn't dare say another word. They tucked their tails and scurried out. The world was quiet again. I didn't stop there. I made another call, this time to one of my dad's old connections. Arthur, there's a small startup called Auratech that got screwed over by a shell game. Can you take a look at it? There was a few seconds of silence on the line. Carter, my boy, if you're asking, I'll handle it. Have the executives from that company come to my office tomorrow to sign the new contracts. And just like that, it was handled. To them, the sky was falling. To me, it was just 2 phone calls. That night, Sloane's parents grabbed my hands, weeping tears of pure gratitude. Carter, you are our family's savior. We could work like dogs for the rest of our lives and never repay you. Then, they gently pushed Sloane forward. We don't have anything to offer you. So please, just take Sloane. Marry her. She's yours now. Whatever you want from her, it's yours. I looked at Sloane. She was biting her pale lip, but she didn't argue. This was all part of my plan, anyway. I would use overwhelming gratitude and a marriage certificate to forge an unbreakable chain. I nodded. All right. The wedding was brutally cheap. The officiant was a college kid hired from some discount event planning site. The venue was empty except for our 2 families. All those business partners who used to kiss up to the Montgomery family had vanished like ghosts. As for my blood-sucking relatives, not a single one bothered to show up. Fine by me. Save me the nausea of looking at them. Looking back, these past 5 years, I felt less like a husband and more like a high roller at a Vegas casino who had pushed all his chips onto a single number. I watched the ticker every day as Sloane, my prized blue chip stock, surged in value. They say a smart gambler knows when to cash out. Now, Sloane was a titan. Her company went public, and she reached the absolute peak of the wealth ladder. My gamble had finally paid off. It was time to show my hand and collect my winnings. Was I going to demand half her net worth? No, I just wanted my original seed money and a fair premium. And then a clean break. If I asked myself honestly, was it really just about the money? 5 years. You'd get attached to a stray dog after 5 years, let alone a living, breathing, drop-dead, gorgeous woman like Sloane. That face, that figure, that icy, intoxicating allure. Even if she were completely useless, I probably would have accepted my fate. But she wasn't. Now she was a queen, a woman standing at the absolute apex of Manhattan's food chain. I sneered internally. There's a saying online, when men get money, they go bad. Honestly, just drop the word men. When anyone gets money and power, they change. I should have seen it coming. That seed of doubt had been planted in my mind the day she became CEO. And a few days ago, it finally grew into a towering tree. That afternoon, I had just woken up from a nap and went downstairs for a glass of water. As I walked past the powder room, the door was cracked open. I could hear Sloane's voice. She had her phone on speaker. The voice on the other end belonged to Kyle, her sleazy new executive assistant. Sloane, I've reviewed those proposals. Your vision is unparalleled, as always. Skip the flattery, Kyle. Let's talk business, Sloane said, a hint of impatience in her voice. And then, I heard the words that made the blood freeze in my veins. We need to find a block of time to throw another wedding. I want you to draft up a general timeline, look at venues, and put together a preliminary guest list. I'll nail down the specifics later. A wedding. I stood frozen in the hallway, the glass in my hand nearly shattering against the hardwood floor. I heard Kyle let out an oily, sycophantic laugh. Absolutely, boss. Leave it to me. It'll be the event of the century. Oh, by the way, what about Carter? Then came the killing blow. Her voice dropped, low but devastatingly clear. Remember, make sure Carter doesn't catch wind of this. If he finds out, it'll ruin everything. Crash. My world went totally silent. So that was it. I wasn't her husband anymore. I was an inconvenient problem on her road to total dominance. An obstacle that needed to be quietly and carefully disposed of. I didn't storm in and demand answers. What would be the point? I was just me, a guy coasting on inherited wealth, a self-styled investor. She was the ruthless, decisive queen of the corporate world. And she had that opportunistic vulture of an assistant hovering around her. How could I possibly fight them? Beg her not to throw me away. Don't make me laugh. I had too much pride for that. At that exact moment, my mind flashed to a cynical cartoon character from some late-night Adult Swim show I used to watch. He would laugh this grating, horrible laugh and say, "Love? Ha ha. Love is the biggest scam in the universe." Yeah, what the hell was love actually worth? If she was already paving her exit route, there was no reason for me to hang around. I stooped out my cigarette, my eyes turning completely cold. The investment had matured. Time to collect the payout and run. It was the only logical move. Of course, my confidence in this divorce wasn't just about cutting ties with Sloane. I was a smart investor. I never put all my eggs in one basket. Another face flashed in my mind. A girl who, a few years ago, was in an even more pathetic state than Sloane. She had that same wolf-like gaze. And now she was a ruthless heiress from a massive D.C. political dynasty. A Beltway power broker. Just a few days ago, she had texted me, "Carter, when are you getting that divorce? I'm done waiting." Her tone was incredibly bossy, totally unrecognizable from the timid girl I remembered. Good Lord. One after another, they were all so damn high maintenance. I used to use the "I'm already married" shield to brush her off, telling her a guy like me wasn't good enough for her. She should find someone better. But looking at it now, I was an absolute genius. I could divorce here and seamlessly pivot right over to D.C. Marry again, cash out again. It was a flawless business model. I couldn't help but laugh. On one side, I had a Manhattan billionaire begging me not to leave. On the other, a D.C. political elite lining up to marry me. My sheer, overwhelming magnetism was truly a heavy burden to bear. But I wasn't delusional. Who was I, really? Just a Playboy trust fund kid who got lucky picking a few winning stocks. When it came to ruthlessness, scheming, and corporate warfare, I wasn't even fit to shine Sloane's shoes. If she was really planning to hook up with her assistant and throw me in the trash, I had no leverage. What was I going to do? Copy my pathetic relatives and beg her for scraps? Yeah, right? I was terrified that if I stayed, she'd leave me with absolutely nothing. Only cash in hand is truly yours. Love? Ha ha. Total garbage. With that thought, any lingering hesitation evaporated. Fina, she wanted to play games? I was an expert. Not only was I going to divorce her, I was going to make it a clean break. I was going to make Sloane so utterly disgusted with me that she'd kick me out of her life voluntarily. I didn't waste any time. Instead of trying to reason with a crazy woman, I took action. Over the next few days, I took my car and hit up the most decadent, money-burning spots in New York. First stop, a VIP lounge in the meatpacking district. Deafening bass, pulsing strobe lights, and air thick with the cloying scent of cheap perfume and expensive vodka. The manager bowed as he led me to my table, practically kissing my feet. "Whatever you need, Mr. Hayes. Bring me your best bottle girls. The ones who know how to party." Soon, a line of impeccably manicured women walked in, all long legs and identical manufactured smiles. I pointed at random. You, and you. Over here." I pulled out my phone and flipped the camera. "Get close. Put your arms around my neck. Yeah, smile. Make it look like you're wildly in love with me." Flash. The picture captured me looking like an absolute sleazebag, a gorgeous girl draped over each arm. Perfect. One of the girls leaned into my ear. "Nice watch. Patek, right? Must have cost a fortune." I smiled. So tacky, but so real. This was exactly the vibe I needed. Next stop, an upscale billiards club, then a high-end nightclub. I ordered the most expensive champagne and took countless intimate photos and videos with different women, feeding me drinks, kissing my cheek, sitting on my lap. Every single file reeked of hormones and decaying wealth. I looked exactly like a degenerate trust fund brat rotting away his days. At dawn, I returned to the penthouse reeking of booze. The upstairs was dead quiet. Excellent. I printed out all my masterpieces from my phone and loaded the videos onto a USB drive. Irrefutable evidence. Then, I grabbed a pen and paper to write the letter that would guarantee my financial freedom. I intentionally made my handwriting sloppy, trying to look frantic and desperate to leave. "Sloane, I cheated. I've been cheating for a while. I fell in love with someone else, and we're getting married, so I can live the life I actually want. Since you won't agree to the divorce, I'm just going to elope with her. Inside this envelope is all the proof of my infidelity you'll ever need to file for divorce. I won't contest it in court. In 3 months, the papers will finalize automatically." When I got to the section about dividing assets, I paused. Given her current net worth, my 15% stake in the company was easily worth hundreds of millions. I was already way up. Chapter 3. Take a powerhouse female CEO to court over half her fortune? I wasn't that stupid. I was afraid that if I pushed her into a corner, she'd unleash her lawyers and I wouldn't even get my initial investment back. I know I'm the one at fault here. Legally, I could go after half of what you own, but whatever. Forget it. When I helped you out back then, I put in $1 million of my own money and pulled some strings. Just give me $2 million. Consider it my final severance package. I wish you the best in finding someone better. I looked at the scrawled lines and smiled in satisfaction. The image of a guilty, cheating scumbag who just wanted a quick payout so he could run away with his mistress leaped right off the page. When she saw this letter and that insultingly low number, she would only feel disgust. She'd want to swat me away like a bothersome fly. That was exactly what I wanted. I stuffed the letter and that pile of disgraceful evidence into a thick manila envelope, sealed it, and left it right in the middle of the coffee table where she couldn't miss it. The next morning, before the sun even came up, I was gone. Not a shred of hesitation. I headed straight to JFK, destination, Miami. The moment the plane lifted off the tarmac, a massive weight lifted off my shoulders. To make the performance flawless, as soon as I checked into my hotel in South Beach, I threw on some swim trunks and headed straight for the water. I filmed a quick video of some gorgeous women in bikinis walking by. Then, I tapped on Sloane's contact and hit send. I added a quick caption, "Hurry up with the paperwork. I've got a wedding to plan." After that, I tossed my phone aside and slipped on my sunglasses. The sunset over the Atlantic really was spectacular. The salt breeze hit my face, smelling like absolute freedom. I leaned back in my lounge chair, shades on, not a care in the world. The view in front of me was phenomenal. Beautiful, sun-kissed bodies everywhere. It was almost blinding. Wow, legs for days. Unbelievable. Ah, the corrupting decadence of capitalism. So simple, so pure. I pulled out my phone, angled it toward a particularly striking pair of legs walking past, and snapped a photo. I opened that familiar chat thread. Send. Added caption. "The view is amazing. My mood is even better. Perfect. The straw that would break the camel's back. Hand-delivered by yours truly. Oh, Sloane, when you see this, you're going to be so repulsed you'll sign those papers overnight. 2 million, right into my account. Then, I'd head down to D.C., meet up with my political heiress, and start round 2. I really was an absolute financial genius. I was happily calculating my future net worth when a sudden chill swept over the back of my neck. A head suddenly appeared from behind my lounge chair, leaning over upside down until it was inches from my face. We were so close I could see her individual eyelashes. A very familiar, expensive perfume flooded my senses. Wait, why did this smell like impending doom? I yanked down my sunglasses. Shit. Filling my vision was the one face I had dreamed of escaping. Sloane. She was smiling at me. A wide, radiant, intoxicating smile, like a poppy blooming right before it poisons you. Having fun. Her voice was incredibly light, as soft as a feather. But to my ears, it sounded like the grim reaper sharpening his scythe. Every single hair on my body stood at attention. But I couldn't lose face now. Yeah, having a great time. I forced the words out, my mouth twitching into a stiff, unnatural grin. Sloane's smile instantly grew brighter, and vastly more dangerous. Really? She reached out a slender finger and gently traced my lower lip. Are the girls in the bikinis pretty? My throat went completely dry. Soft skin, she asked. Do you want me to call them over? You could apply their sunscreen for them. I couldn't form a single syllable. This script was completely broken. Wasn't she supposed to be calling me a scumbag through her tears and throwing a check at my face? How did she end up personally delivering herself across state lines? No, she crossed state lines to harvest my organs. Right as my brain completely short-circuited, a white cloth suddenly appeared in her hand. I didn't even see where she pulled it from. In the next fraction of a second, that cloth was clamped violently over my nose and mouth. The harsh, stinging chemical stench of chloroform shot straight into my brain. I thrashed wildly, but her grip was terrifyingly strong. Her voice drifted right into my ear, as gentle as a mother singing a lullaby. Chill. Deep breaths. Just relax. Don't be scared, honey. You're gonna go to sleep now. Sleep, my ass. This is a kidnapping. A massive wave of dizziness crashed over me. The beach, the sunset, the ocean, everything began to spin, distort, and shatter into pieces. Right before the darkness swallowed me whole, the last thing I saw was Sloane's face. There was no anger, no hatrif, just a twisted, obsessive, all-consuming possessiveness that looked ready to swallow me alive. I am screwed. My head was pounding. It felt like 10,000 bees were throwing a rave inside my skull. I forced my eyes open. A lavish ceiling, an ornate crystal chandelier, and the subtle scent of expensive hotel aromatherapy. This definitely wasn't my $300 a night beach rental. I tried to move. My body felt like a puddle of melted wax. Every ounce of strength had been drained from my muscles. An arm was draped heavily across my chest, hot breath ghosting across my neck. I stiffly turned my head. Sloane. She was curled up against my side, sleeping peacefully, a satisfied flush coloring her cheeks. Holy shit. Was I actually kidnapped? My slight movement woke her up. She rubbed her sleepy eyes, and when she saw I was awake, her lips instantly curved into a sickly sweet smile. You're awake, honey? She let out a soft yawn and nuzzled deeper into my chest. I think I used a little too much yesterday. You're probably still feeling weak. My brain buzzed with static. Drugged? A wave of ice shot from my toes straight to my brain. I tried to violently sit up, but my limbs completely betrayed me. Sloan, are you insane? I gritted out, my voice shaking with a mix of shock and rage. Is this really necessary just to stop a divorce? I told you I cheated on you. I was still trying to play the card. It was my final, desperate struggle. Cheated. The moment she heard that word, the smile vanished from Sloane's face. She abruptly shifted, climbing over me to pin me down. Those beautiful eyes were blazing with a fire I couldn't comprehend. Fanatical, obsessive, and undeniably unhinged. Carter, I am completely devoted to you. Her voice wavered with a sob, yet it possessed an unbreakable intensity. My life, my parents' lives, you saved all of us. Everything I am belongs to you. How could you just throw me away? She staked her claim like rapid-fire artillery, her hands gripping my shoulders like vices. I have money now. I'm the richest woman in New York. I'm the most beautiful woman in your life. You can't leave me, and I know you don't really want to. Right? I stared at her, completely dumbfounded. This narrative was broken beyond repair. She leaned down, her breath hot against my face. You're still thinking about running away. I have to punish you. She didn't wait for an answer. Her hands began to wander, tracing the lines of my chest with a possessive, feverish energy. Despite the heavy lethargy anchoring my limbs, a treacherous heat flared up inside me, responding to her touch. Damn it, I thought through the haze. Did she spike that chloroform with something else? What followed was a blur of velvet sheets and dizzying surrender. Stripped of all resistance, I was nothing more than a captive audience to her relentless affection, a puppet tangled in her strings. By the time the tempest finally settled, Sloane was curled against my chest, her cheeks flushed with the innocent, triumphant glow of a child who had finally claimed her favorite prize. I, on the other hand, lay there staring blankly at the ceiling, utterly exhausted in body and soul. It was over. I was completely cooked. I looked down at the woman who had fully transformed into a terrifying, obsessive stalker wife. Only one thought remained in my mind. I was never, ever getting this divorce. This wasn't a successful angel investment. I had basically invested myself into a trap. Principal, interest, everything. She had devoured me entirely and demanded my absolute physical surrender to boot. For the next few days, I was technically on vacation. In reality, I was just serving a prison sentence in a much prettier location. Sloane stuck to me like a shadow. If I walked on the beach, she held an umbrella over my head. If I went into the water, she stood at the shoreline holding a towel, glaring with an intensity that genuinely unsettled the lifeguards. My $300 rental was long gone. We were staying in the presidential suite, which cost more per night than my rental did for a month. The sheer decadence of it all. I lay on my lounger, staring at women's chests and legs walking by. I figured she would get furiously jealous. Instead, she just paused for a second, then lunged at me, playfully slapping my chest. Her punches felt like feathers. It wasn't a fight. It was aggressive flirting. I dodged her laughing, but inside I was bewildered. This whole thing was getting ridiculous. When the honeymoon ended, I was escorted back to New York. As soon as we stepped off the private jet, a Rolls-Royce was waiting on the tarmac. Before I could even process what was happening, Sloane shoved me into the back seat. We weren't heading back to the penthouse. We were driving out to her parents' estate in Westchester. My stomach dropped. Great. Now I was facing the Spanish Inquisition. I had my excuses fully prepared, bracing myself for the furious wrath of my in-laws. But the moment the car pulled up and the doors opened, my father-in-law sprinted toward me like an Olympic sprinter. He didn't even glance at his billionaire daughter. He grabbed both my hands tightly. Carter, thank God you're back. His sheer enthusiasm totally derailed my brain. Right behind him, my mother-in-law stormed out, marching straight up to Sloane and slapping her hard on the back. You stupid girl. You have some nerve showing your face here. You practically drove your husband away. What is wrong with you? I was speechless. Hold on, Mom. Who drove who away? Though, to be fair, she had a point. I was the one who got drugged and kidnapped across state lines. Sloane's parents didn't even give me a chance to speak. They grabbed my arms and essentially carried me into the house. Carter, please don't be mad at her. She's just foolish. We are so sorry she put you through this. We sincerely apologize. Chapter 4. As they spoke, these two people in their 60s actually looked like they were about to bow to me. Terrified, I quickly grabbed their arms to hold them up. Sir, ma'am, please, you don't need to do that. I was totally lost. I shot a bewildered look at Sloane, who was standing to the side with her head bowed like a frightened quail. What kind of Kool-Aid had she been feeding her parents? Finally, my mother-in-law slapped her thigh and got to the point. Carter, it was Sloane's fault. She gave you the wrong idea. That male assistant of hers, I already made her fire him. She has a new assistant now, a 45-year-old woman with kids in college. You have absolutely nothing to worry about. The male assistant? My brain buzzed violently. My mother-in-law was still berating Sloane, and all that nonsense about a wedding. I was furious when I heard about it. This girl is just dense. She felt so guilty that you, a wealthy young man, had to marry a ruined, bankrupt girl with such a cheap, pathetic ceremony. Now that she's successful, she wanted to throw you a massive, lavish vow renewal to make up for it. She wanted it to be a massive surprise. Can you believe how stupid she is? How do you plan a wedding and hide it from your own husband? No wonder you completely misunderstood. Crash. It felt like a bolt of lightning struck me right on the top of my head. The cheating I was so convinced of. The evidence I had meticulously gathered. My brilliant, cynical escape plan. It was all over a surprise vow renewal. I was the clown the whole time. I looked at my fiercely defensive in-laws, who were actively fighting on my behalf. Then I looked at Sloane, who was staring at the floor, looking heartbroken, her eyes red and puffy. In my mind, I heard that cynical cartoon character from late-night TV laughing again. Love? Ha ha. Love is the cruelest joke of all. Yeah, it really was cruel. Cruel enough to turn a guy who thought he was a calculating genius into an absolute, unmitigated moron. My initial motive had been nothing more than a calculated financial investment. But to Sloane and her family, I was blood. To me, saving them from the loan sharks was just a stock acquisition. To them, it was a life debt they were trying to repay with absolute devotion and genuine love. For the very first time, the 15% equity stake in my portfolio felt like it was burning my hands. The chaotic family intervention ended with my complete and unconditional surrender. What else could I do? They viewed me as their savior and their family. Meanwhile, I was plotting behind their backs to drain their accounts and run. I was the absolute villain of this story. Shortly after, a spectacular vow renewal shocked all of New York high society. A convoy of Rolls-Royces stretched out from Fifth Avenue all the way down to Wall Street. Wall Street titans, tech billionaires, and hordes of reporters crowded the venue like it was Times Square on New Year's Eve. The camera flashes were so blinding I thought I'd permanently lose my vision. The scale of this event, compared to our pathetic first wedding, was like comparing a penthouse to a dumpster. My relatives showed up, of course. Every single one of them. The same people who avoided me like the plague back then were now smiling so hard the wrinkles on their faces could crush a walnut. My Uncle Frank, the guy who tried to steal my parents' house, shuffled up to me holding a glass of champagne. "Carter, my boy, you know, your uncle's been having a bit of cash flow problem lately." He rubbed his hands together, his eyes constantly darting over to where Sloane was standing. "Your wife's company is practically printing money. If you could just toss a few minor vendor contracts my way, I'd be set for life." I looked at his greedy, sweating face and smirked. "Uncle Frank, I think you've had too much to drink." Sloane, standing beside me, just gave him a single, icy, sidelong glance. Her eyes were sub-zero. Uncle Frank instantly withered and scurried back into the crowd like a rat. It was incredibly satisfying. Amidst the sea of fake, smiling faces, I spotted Aunt Evelyn. She wore a stunning emerald green gown, draped with a white fur shawl. She looked regal, completely transcendent. It was as if time had entirely forgotten about her. Though she was older, she didn't look a day over 28. She radiated this intoxicating, sophisticated elegance that blew every young socialite in the room completely out of the water. She stood out like a swan among a flock of pigeons. As soon as the ceremony wrapped up, I grabbed a drink and walked straight over to her. Sloane stayed right by my side, playing the perfect, dutiful wife. "Aunt Evelyn, I'm coming over to visit in a few days. It's been way too long since you made those fried chicken wings." Aunt Evelyn gave me a sideways glance and scoffed. "Oh, so now that you're married to a billionaire, you finally remember your old aunt? Come over whenever. I'll make as many wings as you want." I grinned. "What do you mean, old aunt? You look so good. Anyone walking by would think you're 28. Aunt Evelyn laughed, shooting me a breathtakingly charming glare. "Stop with the smooth talk. Your wife is standing right there." She leaned in, dropping her voice to a whisper right by my ear. "If people hear you, they'll think you actually have a crush on me." Her warm breath tickled my ear. I reflexively glanced at Sloane, and sure enough, she was staring daggers at me. My heart skipped a beat, and I immediately stood up straight. Watching the dynamic between us, the teasing look in Aunt Evelyn's eyes finally faded into a warm, genuine smile of relief. She knew my reckless, wandering ship had finally found a safe harbor. After the wedding, Sloane and I spent 2 days at Aunt Evelyn's place. While she fried up wings for me, she constantly scolded Sloane for keeping me on too tight of a leash. Sloane just sat beside me, peeling shrimp from my plate, keeping her head down, not arguing back for a second. It was a surprisingly domestic, perfect picture, 2 days later, Sloane's parents essentially threw our honeymoon tickets right in my face. They even issued a set of mandatory directives. We had to visit multiple islands, shoot lots of TikToks, and ideally come back pregnant. I looked at the destination on the tickets. Bora Bora. All right, fine. I was forcibly packed up by my in-laws and shipped off on a private jet to the South Pacific. Fine. Bring on the decadence. No matter where we walked on the island, I wore my favorite dark sunglasses. Eventually, Sloane couldn't take it anymore. Can you take those stupid things off? I was lounging on a beach chair, one leg crossed over the other, admiring the incredible tropical scenery through my heavily tinted lenses. Man, the tourists here were really something else. I gave her a wicked smirk. If I take them off, you'll be able to see exactly where my eyes are looking. Sloane froze for a second. Then, her face turned bright red and she tackled me, her fists raining down on my chest. You're still looking? I'll give you something to look at. I laughed out loud, trying to dodge her. This kind of beating was infinitely better than waking up drugged and tied to a bed in Miami. We wrestled and laughed, chasing each other from the sand straight into the crystal clear water. Maybe love wasn't as cruel a joke as I thought it was. After the honeymoon, I made time to sneak over to Aunt Evelyn's house alone. It was the same patio, the same lounge chair. Aunt Evelyn came out carrying a fresh plate of hot wings. You brat, what brings you out here for a heart-to-heart? I grabbed a wing and shoved it in my mouth, blowing air to cool the burn. Just worried you'd be bored all alone in this big house. Plus, I don't have anything to do all day. My wife handles everything. Aunt Evelyn rolled her eyes. At least you still know how to check in on me. She looked me up and down. You're looking healthy. Got some color in your face. When are you two going to have a kid? I choked on my chicken. Cough, cough. We're working on it. I awkwardly laughed and tried to change the subject. What about you, Aunt Evelyn? Are you really never going to settle down? You can't just stay single forever. Aunt Evelyn covered her mouth and laughed, utterly elegant. Me? I'm not the marrying type. Your mother couldn't convince me back in the day. You think you have a shot? She paused, her eyes softening with warmth. Besides, I invite you to take care of me when I'm old. When you two finally have a baby, just make me the godmother. That way, I'll have a family without any of the hassle. A few years passed in the blink of an eye. Sloane and I were sitting on the plush sofa in our estate. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, I watched our little girl, wearing a fluffy princess dress, chasing butterflies across the manicured lawn. Her laughter rang out like silver bells. I finally understood what people meant by a picture-perfect life. Sloane gently rested her head on my shoulder and asked softly, "Still want that divorce?" I turned to look at her. Over the years, her face had only grown more beautiful, carrying an effortless, confident grace. All my old cynical calculations had been completely scrubbed away by the warmth and mundane perfection of the last few years. I leaned down and pressed a kiss to her forehead. Then I spoke with absolute unwavering certainty. Not a chance. I have a perfect daughter and a perfect wife. And my wife happens to be a breathtaking billionaire. Any man who would walk away from this is an absolute idiot. Sloane shot me a playful, loving glare. You're such a smooth talker. Story complete.